What's up, dude and dudettes? This is Big Cut from the cutting room floor. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite, hands down favorite, um, DC comics. Ooh, ooh. Sorry about that. Um, Neil Gaiman wrote it. And for those of y'all who don't know who Neil Gaiman is, he wrote American Gods, helped write Good Omens, Lucifer. But Sandman was the first comic I read when I became an adult. Now, I've read comics and books most of my life, most of my early teenage years, most of my early teenage years I read a lot. And I gotten to the point where comics were stale. And because, by the time I turned 18, it was, they weren't as adventurous. Now, I did read a lot of Marvel in the 90s, and for those of y'all who know, Marvel in the 90s got kind of anti-hero-ish, edgy, but it still wasn't adult per se. It was more like rated PG-13. Then I saw The Sandman by Neil Gaiman at a local library, and I picked it up. I think it was Requiems and Nocturnals, or Nocturnes and Requiems, something along those lines. It was the first book of the Sandman series. And so I started reading it. Neil Gaiman's brilliant, you guys. Basically, the comic is about a manifestation of Dream, the Lord of Dreams, Morbius, and his family. He's part of the Endless, and what the Endless are manifestations of things that happen in life. Destiny, death, dream, desire, despair, things like that. They're doing a Netflix series about it. I kind of spoiled a little bit about the other siblings, but in the Netflix series, you get to meet death, desire, and despair, and then you hear about one called the Prodigal. Now, I'm not going to tell you who the Prodigal is, but if you can tell, they all start with a D. Okay? All of the manifestations start with a D. All of the Endless do. So if you have any idea who it could be, without looking it up, I want you to put into the comments who you think that the prodigal son that they're referring to in the series is. Okay? It's a great story. The beginning of the story starts off with an occultist named Robert Burgess, who tries to capture Death, one of the Endless. Unfortunately, he doesn't capture Death, he captures Dream. Dream is trapped in Burgess's basement for 90 years. Okay? There's sleep sickness and the whole world kind of goes a little unhinged when that happens. Because, if you capture Dream, nobody's really going to dream, are they? Brilliant. Neil Gaiman had a lot to do with the structure of it and everything like that. They did take out there are moments where in the comics they refer to the Justice League and things of that nature. They took them out in the series, and I understand why, because they haven't established anything like that, and DC Cinematic Universe is going through some stuff. We'll just say that without having to cause any distress, but it's going through some stuff, which is sad because there's a lot of potential there. I mean, Batman is by far the greatest movies I've ever seen. The Batman wasn't that bad either with Robert Pattinson. I was skeptical, folks. I really was, but it was good. But Neil Gaiman wrote it, and he helped produce it. Now, what I like about this show is it brought me to comics again. Like I was saying before I trailed off, uh, I found it in a local library. And it made me realize that just because something has pictures, like comics, doesn't necessarily mean it's kid stuff. That was my first graphic novel I ever read, was The Sandman. It's a great book, you guys. Neil Gaiman is a genius. He truly is. He wrote a few comics. The only comic series I can think of right off is the one I really want to read is 1602, where it talks about the X-Men and things like that, but they're considered witches because, you know, they're mutants, but they're considered witches. I'd really love to read that. I haven't. I really want to. He wrote American Gods, Lucifer, a huge book about Norse mythology. He helped write Good Omens. I don't want to say it like this, being a diehard Marvel fan. So I won't. I'll say it like this. Neil Gaiman is probably the next Stan Lee. I would honestly say that. He has the potential to be the next Stan Lee, and not just in comics, but in creating American literature itself. Which is ironic because he's British. It's a great show, you guys. If you have not seen The Sandman on Netflix, you should. It is worth the watch. Some of it may be a little bit too far-fetched for certain viewers. I get that, but it's good. It's written well. The dialogue's good. There's a lot of good actors in it. I tried to look up the pronunciation of some of the actors. I couldn't pronounce them. I'm sorry to all the actors like that I, didn't mention. It's more about the story, in my opinion, as far as this goes. However, you do have a lot of people from Game of Thrones that come into this series. Not as their Game of Thrones character, obviously, but as their, you've got Tywin Lannister as Robert Burgess. And you've got, I cannot think of her name. Big tall lady that fell in love with Jaime Lannister. She plays Lucifer. Which, I know what y'all are thinking. Oh, why? Well, Neil Gaiman, who wrote Lucifer, I think he had help, but mostly it was Neil Gaiman's idea. He wanted Lucifer to look like David Bowie. Blonde hair. Not saying that the lady that played Lucifer looks like David Bowie, but David Bowie had that feminine kind of look, and that's kind of what he was going for, that kind of look. But they did a great job, guys. Oh my God. I know I'm kind of bouncing back and forth and all crazy, but they did a wonderful, wonderful job. Now, I did hear that there's some BuzzFeed going around that Neil Gaiman was not happy with the series or something like that. He wanted to cancel it or what have you. Please don't. Please don't. It's so rare. Like, they canceled American Gods. There's a rumor they've canceled Good Omens. I don't know if that's true or not. Don't cancel another Neil Gaiman show. Lucifer ended. That was awesome. That how Lucifer ended. But they had to get picked up by Netflix. It's like people don't understand how his storytelling works, but it's good storytelling. It truly, truly is. So, Mr. Gaiman, if you would, I'm going to tag you in this video. I know it's not likely to happen, but I'd like to put it out there. Mr. Gaiman, if you would, let me know if it's a rumor or if it's true that you were unhappy with the Sandman, because you shouldn't be, sir. It's fantastic. Take it from a man who you saved with your comics and your stories. The Netflix show is wonderful. Not as good as the book, but whatever is. I would... It's... Trying not to cry. It got me out of a lot of dark places, your writings. And I'd like to thank you. Yeah, I got to get off of here. Anyway, watch Sandman on Netflix, everybody. It's worth it. And Mr. Gaiman, thank you. This is Big Cut. Stay frosty.